Okay, this is the first video in the evolution unit. Starting off with what is evolution exactly. What that word means scientifically is change in organisms over time. If you look at organisms today, we can see based on fossils and lots of other evidence we'll be learning about in class that living things haven't always been the same, that they've actually changed over time. Evolution is actually one of the best supported scientific theories in science, in all of science, and that's because we have lots of data, lots of facts that help show that organisms have changed, and they've even help us understand how does this change happen. Today we started with learning about the background information that would kind of help us understand evolution later, and that is really how does the DNA molecule create an organism. So starting this story here, DNA is inside of the cells of a nucleus, so here's a magnified DNA molecule. And basically DNA is a molecule that has information in it that has all the directions in it, if you will, on how to build an organism. DNA is divided up into different little sections called genes. So you can call this gene number 1 maybe this section, gene number 2, 3, Organisms have 20 to 30,000 genes, scientists are finding. And each gene is like one little piece of information on how to build one little part of an organism. All the DNA together is kind of like similar to a paragraph. Each gene might be one sentence of information in that paragraph. And what genes do is the information they have is used to put a little molecule or little molecules called amino acids together. There's about 20 different types of little amino acid molecules that are inside of cells. And the genes actually tell the cell which order to connect these together in kind of a chain. And that chain thing that is made is what we call a protein. So all this time you've heard about proteins in your lives. They're little chains of amino acids that are built from information in the DNA. And proteins, can be things in your hair, in your skin, inside of cells that do chemical reactions, lots of different kinds of proteins. But the accumulation of a protein ultimately can lead to a trait of an organism. And a trait is something that can be passed on, a characteristic. Of an organism that can be passed to the next generation. And if you have lots of different genes and they all put together lots of different proteins ultimately, that make lots of different traits, and all the traits together ultimately make you. An organism, which is just a term for a living thing. So all the traits that you have ultimately come from proteins that you have, which put together of amino acids, which come from gene directions. An example of that, let's say gene 3 here, is a brown hair protein. Meaning, it has the information in the DNA on how to put brown hair, or to build brown hair. So what happens is, this gene has the information to put amino acids together in the right order. I'll just put brown hair amino acids to ultimately make a brown hair protein. And when all that brown hair protein starts growing out of your head, you have brown hair. And again, that trait, along with trait for how fast your fingers grow, traits for how many fingers you have, traits for your nose, traits for every possible part of your body ultimately comes from your DNA, and they all come together to make you. Second piece of information related to DNA that we have to understand to ultimately get to our idea of evolution is mutations. Mutations defined are changes in the information in the DNA. DNA is a molecule, and it can be damaged by certain environments, say chemicals and smoke. It also could be messed up when a cell tries to copy it when it reproduces. And if you happen to just put one little piece of information out of place, it's kind of like changing a letter in this word information right here. It ends up changing the meaning. And so mutations, if take the brown hair gene, one little change might actually, and I don't know exactly, but might have caused the new trait of blonde hair. So the information changed from brown to blonde with probably a small change, which then is putting together blonde hair amino acids to make blonde hair proteins. Oops, wish I could spell. And when you have blonde hair growing out of your head, you have the trait of blonde hair. So new traits come about from actually differences in the DNA, which we call mutations. So all the differences between everybody in this room and all living things ultimately came from a change in the DNA that was passed down. And it turns out that mutations you can categorize them in three ways. Good mutations are ones that are, somehow helpful for the survival of the organism. Say, if you're a giraffe and you're born with a mutation that makes your neck a little bit longer than everybody else's, you'll probably get have an easier time getting food, survive a little bit better. Mutations can be bad if you have a mutation in the gene that helps your heart development. It's really sad bad. That might end up killing you. So that can be an issue too. So sometimes mutations are harmful, and mutations can also be neutral in that they don't help or hurt the organism and they're just carried along. An example of a neutral mutation might even be hair color. If there's no survival advantage to being brown hair or blonde hair, you might consider that a neutral mutation, although there could be times where hair color might have an advantage one way or another. And that's it for now.